Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Sentinels' first matchup with their brand new roster going into the new season went down last night in a show match up against Moist x Showify, and map 1 went there well very nicely. After that though, things fell apart very quickly indeed. Is it possible that Sentinels, after apparently dominating the best teams in the world just a few months ago in scrims with this exact roster, have now fallen off considerably? What do they need to change going forwards? 10s look decent on the harbour, but apart from that, not many signs of confidence here for the Sentinels fans. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Few roster updates to get through as well. Firstly, we've got former Furia head coach is actually going to Zeta Division, which is kind of crazy actually. But yeah, lots of changes, especially in that Brazilian scene. The coaching situation is always in flux, and it's kind of cool to see when you get these exports, I guess, and imports from the other region's perspective. This also from Team Secret confirming that the new player was Gen.G rounding out their team. So yeah, Team Secret built this roster. Great video they actually put together here as well. So yeah, that region is really interesting. I do wonder how well Bleed Esports will do, right? Because Jaego's out there, right, to the Singaporean team Bleed Esports. They are, you know, okay, great teams out there. PaperX, DRX, plenty of others. But Bleed are intending to be, okay, initially they want to be the best team in that region eventually, but I think at the start they just want to be qualifying for internationals. Let's not forget, right, that the Masters Madrid tournament at the start of the season, only 8 teams go to that. You've got to be top 2 in your region out of the 11 teams if you want to make it to Masters Madrid. So, you know, it's going to be a tall order, right? Okay, on paper you might think about DRX, PaperX, they should be the teams to go, but then, you know, Bleed Esports aren't going to be messing around either. So, yeah, this is the roster that Team Secret have built. It's okay. I don't think it's going to be setting the world on fire necessarily, but intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. This also from SK Rossi. There were a lot of questions about this player, whether he was going to stay on Global Esports or not, right? Because, you know, Global Esports, Indian team, like on paper, but that's kind of changed over time. Okay, yeah, they've brought in some Indian players again, but it's not quite the same as it felt initially when they first came around. And also there was the theory, really, that SK Rossi was going to stay. We thought he was gone, I think. And then the theory was that they were going to keep him after all. They've now changed their mind on that, I guess, and they're letting SK Rossi explore his options for next year. So, you know, Flex or Sentinel, open to competing across all regions. Definitely a talented player. Somewhat surprised that Global Esports aren't keeping him around, but that is their decision, and that's how things will trend going into next season. This as well is another pretty big update here from Leo Faria. Haven't heard much from this guy for some time, largely because there hasn't been any major controversies for him to get involved in since the guard situation with G2 and everything like that. And as the interview says, I miss VCT, and fair enough. Thankfully, there are some matches starting to happen again, and it is a frustratingly common trend across esports where the off-season is just mega. Like, there really is no reason for the season to be 6 months and for the off-season to be another 6 months. And it's also, not only is it bad for the fans trying to keep up and be entertained, but it's also terrible for the teams and for the sponsors. The teams have to pay players big salaries to not even play the game. Okay, they play the game, they play ranked, and they scrim. But, you know, not even playing, you know, actual regular matches, they are still getting paid their big monthly salaries. Not good for the organization. It's also not good for the org, because how are you meant to get sponsors when you're trying to sell a sponsorship deal, but it's like, well, we only really play for 6 months of the season here, so there isn't really that much airtime for you guys. Same for Riot as well, you know, if you want to sell sponsors for the league, you've got to be upfront to say, yeah, well, actually, we only really run from February through to September, so yeah, those other months, your money isn't really going to do anything, so we might be able to make that work. So obviously, it's better for all parties if there's more matches, but I understand that the logistics of making that happen aren't always so easy. But it is something that the VCT is trying to work on to lengthen the season, because it's not like the players finish out playing the World Championship and they need, you know, 3-4 months off to recover from the physical exertion. That ain't the case in esports. You know, like, they can turn around for next weekends or a couple of days later if they wanted. Like, the players don't need the break, is what I'm saying. The players need some break for sure. It's a big, long, difficult season. They're grinding every day, putting in a lot of time. There should be a break after the World Championship, obviously, but the teams need to make changes. In my ideal world, maybe 10 months on, 2 months off, maybe 9-3, but no more than that, absolutely. And unfortunately, it seems to sometimes trend in a different direction. So Leo Faria does say, I feel you, I miss the VCT too. We need a sizable off-season. So as I say, like, we need an off-season to exist. To, you know, they of course have the third-party tournaments which happen. The teams need to make changes, which is fine. So, you know, 3 months is like the upper limit is what I would put on that. But this year it is particularly long, which, you know, we don't need to say again. We'll fix it though, he says. It takes time to make changes because we plan everything years in advance, but change will come. So yeah, kind of saying that maybe even next year is not necessarily going to be fixed, because he says that it's tough to make changes, they plan years in advance. But yeah, say what you will about that. Hopefully they can resolve it going forward. And to be fair, we did see the rumours that for the Challenger side, the Challengers Ascension tournament is going to finish this year in like September, and then immediately after that, literally a few weeks later, the next year of Challengers is going to start. So it feels like next season they're bringing back the year into late 2024 rather than making it start in early 2025, which is definitely a good thing. But it probably means that next year we barely have much of an off season at all, which could be good. But then the year after we might have another bigger one if they're kind of just bringing back the season, as it were. So enjoy your thoughts on that in the comments below. But let's dive into the Sentinels thing. This team obviously is always talked about the most because they have tens, they have the biggest fan base, and their team wants them to actually win something again, because, you know, great time to be a Sentinels fan back in 2021 where they're actually winning things and doing well. Since then hasn't been the same. 2021 they won things. 2022 they were the absolute clout demons. I mean, everything they did, especially the Shroud thing, like everything, the way they blew up as an organization, very impressive. 2023 the plan was to bring those two together. Rob Moore said it. Our intention is to maintain it, to be the clout kings of Valorant and of the esports world, and also win everything, or, you know, win some things as well. They kind of faltered on both fronts to some extent, but especially on the winning side, didn't go so well. So their team, though, was pretty good, right? It was okay. They had some success. Psycho, the coach, eventually got fired. Def was gone. When Marv came in, did some gelling, they looked pretty good in that period. And okay, Marv is now gone, but they believe that that core of Sassy, Pancada, Tens, and Zekin still has what it takes, and they decided to go all in on that core again. During the World Championship, all the talk, actually not even so much about the event itself, because Sentinels weren't at the World Championship, they didn't qualify because they failed to get through the last chance qualifier. That gave them the opportunity to practice up against the best teams in the world who were playing at the World Championship at the time. And according to basically all sources, the likes of Fnatic, Paper X, even Evil Geniuses were at best splitting maps, splitting rounds with Sentinels. They were that good. I think even Jinx said it after the tournament, that we were doing well. Like, Paper X were great that event, but they were playing Sentinels in practice in scrims to warm them up for stuff, and they were getting bodied by Sentinels. So, you know, there was so much hype around the Sentinels team, and you've got to think that that Sentinels roster with John QT, who was then found out to have been the IGL at the time after they made those changes, you'd have thought that given a couple of months of practice since that time, they would have got only ever better. That didn't necessarily seem to be the case yesterday, and this is the concern for Sentinels fans, that John QT, when he first came into the team, we thought it was FNS, right, who was IGLing the team initially because, you know, this mystery IGL, because we thought that, you know, that might make a lot of sense. Turns out that wasn't the case, and it was John QT all along. So that roster that was dominating the World Championship winners in practice a couple of months ago should only have improved and is trying to be perceived as the best America's team in the world this season, which is a possibility. But right now it looks a little bit less likely. As Sassy says, next map, Pancada, Killjoy, Sassy, Omen. And yeah, you got to say that Sassy did not have the best time in yesterday's game, and this really just sums it up here. So look, Sentinels dominated game one, no doubt. That was impressive. And if this was a one map show match, then that would be fine. But yeah, this was map 2, map 3 were not pretty, especially this, right? Here goes Brook, 1 versus 2, gets the first kill, gets the second kill on Sassy. The trade wasn't there, the timing was just off for Sentinels on the peak, and Brook gets the opportunity, finds himself in a 1 versus 1 here up against the Viper of Pancada, and there's just nothing that Pancada can really do here to stop Brook. He clutches the 1 versus 3 for the round and for the game. So 2-1 over Sentinels for Moist Egg Shopify Valorant. Now, their team is good. I think there's no one denying that they have a very good team, especially in the Challenger side. Let me just make sure this is a reasonable level of zoom. Go back to all maps here. So yeah, this was the overall record. 2-1 for Moist Egg Shopify. Their team is good. Brook, Thief, Marder, Vic, and Flyer. No doubt, like, everyone is believing this team could be one of the best in Ascension. But Sentinels should be a different level. I mean, the talent they've got, there's no no doubt they should be winning a series like this. And look, it's a show match. In the grand scheme of things, it might not mean all that much, but they were still trying. There was still some money on the line here. There's about 5 grand separated across the two teams that was on the line for the winners. So, you know, you'd want to win this series if you could, and it's not like Sentinels weren't trying. I mean, game 1 Bind was dominant, 13-2. Zekken was on fire here on the Rays especially, and, you know, this was kind of not the thing you were expecting. I was expecting it to be probably a 2-1 to Sentinels. I was expecting maybe a 13-7 final map for them, something like that once they warmed up. But yeah, that wasn't the case. Map 1 was dominant. Ascent, though, went 13-8 the way of Moist Shopify. Okay, that was their pick. But then the Haven, of course, the decider, this is where you'd expect Sentinels to close out the series. They only got 2 rounds in the first half, and they were lucky to not get completely embarrassed. Eventually, they went down 13-5. Tens was kind of maybe the bright spot here on the Harbour. I think he did pretty well. There's, you know, people say, oh, Tens on the agents that have the colour blue is always frying, which maybe is true. So, yeah, Tens look pretty good, and Gen.G isn't expected to do anything crazy because he's the IGL, but you gotta think you're gonna get more here from, especially Sassy, I thought, this series. So, look, it's early days, it's a show match, but if Sentinels really were as good as we thought they might have been, this is a series that they should have had not too much difficulty with on paper. Like, if they really are still cooking in practice, which maybe they're not anymore, then this is an issue. And this is when, you know, the question was called into about Sentinels. We're in mid-season form already. We know that Sentinels often will start out quite well. They might even finish the year quite well, but mid-season, they have typically struggled over the last few years, and, well, it's not even mid-season yet, and they're already in a bit of a predicament here. Now, okay, Zekken says 1-2 versus Moist Esports GG's. I just know that people are talking about it, and even Drew Spark, right, the assistant coach here now for Sentinel, says accountability, and there was some discussion on, okay, someone's late to the scrim, practicing and stuff like this before the match. I guess this might have been slightly before the match, actually, but, you know, you still get the picture that it's not a great result for Sentinels. You want to win this type of stuff, and to be fair, they play against G2 in just a few days' time, so we'll see how that one goes. Maybe Moist Moguls, Moist Shopify are just really, really good, and that kind of combination team they've made is gonna be super difficult to stop going into the new season in Ascension, and maybe it's more of a sign on them than it is on Sentinels, but still, yeah, they will play G2 in a couple of days, and if they don't win that one, especially given that the prize pool for that is all the Twitter beef that they're potentially going to do as a result, then it's not necessarily a good sign for the ceiling of this Sentinels roster. But yeah, tweet your thoughts in the comments below. How much does this matter? I think after the G2 series on the 26th, we might have more of a picture as where the Sentinels actually aren't quite as good as they are hoping to be. So very much intrigued to your perspective in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.